It all started on a night like any other. I was home alone, enjoying the solitude that comes with having the place to yourself. But little did I know, that sense of peace was about to be shattered by something I could never have anticipated. I was sitting in the living room, engrossed in a book, when suddenly my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I picked it up, expecting a text or maybe a call from a friend. But when I glanced at the screen, my heart practically stopped. The number was unknown, just a jumble of digits that made no sense. It was a weird feeling, that mixture of curiosity and apprehension. I hesitated for a moment, then finally swiped to answer. "Hello?" I said, trying to sound casual, like I wasn't at all unnerved by the strange caller. But what I heard on the other end made my blood run cold. The voice, if you could even call it that, was garbled, distorted, like it had been filtered through some kind of electronic glitch. And the words it was saying? They were a mess of threats and twisted promises that didn't make any sense. At first I thought it was a prank, a messed up joke from someone with a sick sense of humor. But as the voice continued, I realized this was something far more sinister. It felt like it was clawing its way into my brain, like it was rifling through my thoughts and fears. It was like they knew me, knew things about me that no stranger should ever know. I hung up, heart racing, and tried to shake off the feeling that I was being watched. But the calls kept coming, each one more twisted than the last. It was like this voice was playing with my mind, manipulating my thoughts. Every call felt like a punch to the gut, a reminder that I was not alone in my own home. The nights grew unbearable. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside, sent my heart into overdrive. It was like I was living in a horror movie, the kind where you can't escape the feeling of impending doom. I couldn't shake the sensation that this distorted voice was lurking just beyond the walls, just out of sight. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I called the police, my voice shaking as I explained the bizarre calls and the twisted threats. They assured me they would look into it, but even that didn't ease my fear. It felt like I was trapped in some kind of nightmare, one where the boundaries between reality and madness were blurred. The police did their thing, and it turned out the calls were coming from someone with a seriously disturbed mind. They had somehow managed to get hold of personal information about me, things only the closest people in my life should know. It was like they were using my own life against me, using my vulnerabilities as weapons. The whole experience was a chilling reminder that the monsters we fear might not always be supernatural or otherworldly. I remember that night vividly, a night when the silence of my home seemed to be shattered by the eerie sounds that echoed through its corridors. With my family away, I found myself alone in the house, the only company I had being the creaking floorboards and the unsettling feeling of being watched. The darkness outside cast elongated shadows that stretched across the room, and each creak of the floorboards seemed to resonate with a presence that I couldn't quite grasp. At first, I brushed it off as my imagination, the product of an overactive mind playing tricks on me in the solitude of the night. But as the hours crept on, the unease settled in the pit of my stomach like a heavy stone. Unable to ignore the feeling any longer, I picked up the flashlight from the kitchen counter and began to investigate. Each step was punctuated by the creaking floorboards, a symphony of their own that seemed to mock my attempts at silence. The hallway stretched before me, its length seeming to grow with each passing moment, and my heartbeat quickened as I reached the end. It was then that I saw it, a fleeting glimpse of movement at the edge of my vision. I turned quickly, my breath catching in my throat, but there was nothing there. The air felt charged, heavy with an energy that I couldn't explain. I forced myself to laugh it off, blaming tiredness and the tricks that the mind can play when left alone in the dark. But deep down, I knew something was off. The sensation of being watched only intensified, and I found myself glancing over my shoulder every few moments, half expecting to see a figure standing there. And then, just as I was about to dismiss it all as paranoia, I saw it again, a shadowy figure, darker than the night itself, moving just beyond the reach of the flashlight's beam. My heart raced as I turned to face it, but once again there was nothing there. It was as if the darkness itself was toying with me, a predator lurking just out of sight. Fear surged through me, a primal instinct that told me to run, to escape whatever was in that house with me. I turned and fled, not daring to look back, the the sound of my pounding footsteps echoing in the hallway. Outside, the cool night air hit me like a wave of relief. I stood on the porch, trying to catch my breath, my mind racing with the realization that I hadn't been alone in that house. Later, I learned that an intruder had been targeting homes in the area, breaking in and watching their unsuspecting victims from the shadows. The knowledge sent shivers down my spine, and even now, the memory of that night haunts me, a reminder that sometimes the scariest things are the ones we can't see, lurking just beyond our perception. So picture this. It was just another ordinary night, me all cozy at home, wrapped up in the warmth of solitude. But sometimes, even the most peaceful moments can twist into something you'd never expect. I was in my living room, probably watching some mindless TV show, when out of nowhere I heard this sudden crash from downstairs. Glass breaking, unmistakable. My heart was in my throat as I snapped off the TV and strained to hear. Then came these hushed footsteps, creeping like a nightmare through my own house. I wasn't about to be caught off guard. My instincts kicked in, and I grabbed the closest thing that looked like it could be used as a weapon, in this case, an old baseball bat. Now armed and ready for whatever might come my way, I crept to the top of the stairs, heart pounding in rhythm with each step I took. And then there it was, a masked figure right there in my living room. My gut churned as I tried to process what I was seeing, a stranger, an intruder, in my own home. Panic and fear welled up inside me, but I couldn't just stand there frozen in terror. I had to protect myself, my space. The intruder must have heard me or sensed my presence because they turned to face me, this sick grin on their face like something out of a horror movie. It's like they were getting some kind of thrill out of the whole situation, reveling in my fear. Every hair on my body stood on end, and for a moment, time seemed to slow down. Without thinking, I raised the bat, my knuckles white around the grip. And then it happened. They lunged at me, a wild and unpredictable force. It was like a fight-or-flight instinct took over, and I swung that bat with all the strength I had. The crack of it connecting with something was deafening, and it was followed by a guttural shout of pain. I backed away, breathing heavy, the adrenaline pumping through me so fast it felt like my veins were on fire. The intruder stumbled, and I took my chance, scrambling to get to my phone and dial 911. My voice was shaky as I explained what was happening, where I was, and that I needed help, now. While I was on the phone, I could still hear the intruder, groaning and cursing, but the police were on their way, and that thought was like a lifeline. When the sirens finally wailed in the distance, the intruder seemed to realize their time was up, and they made a run for it, crashing through a window and disappearing into the night. The police arrived shortly after, and I was a mess of nerves and fear as I recounted the whole ordeal to them. They searched the area and found some evidence that the intruder had left behind, but they never caught them that night.